Boys and girls, Mrs. Johnston here with another read aloud and science time. Can you describe what you see in this picture? Did you tell me that you see snow, that you see trees and snow in the trees? There are a bunch of trees in our picture. Those would have been all correct responses. You can physically see that in the picture. This is a picture of a forest. Forests are made up of many trees and other plants. What time of the year do you think it is? Did you say winter? Winter would be my guess too. What living things do you see in the picture? Did you tell me that you don't see living things? Oh, maybe some of you said yes, you see living things. The trees are the living things that we see in our picture. How are these trees different from one another? Did you say that the one trees you see are brown and they have no leaves, and the other trees are still green? Those are how the trees are different from one another. There are two types of trees in this picture: deciduous and evergreen. These are the deciduous, and these are the evergreen trees. Evergreen trees in this picture still have their leaves even in the winter. A good way to remember these trees is by the word ever in their name. Ever means always. So an evergreen tree is always green. Can you see the green in this picture? Right, me too. Deciduous trees do not keep their leaves in the winter. Deciduous means that the trees lose or shed their leaves in the fall and grow them in the spring. So I am going to point to a tree and I want you to see if you can identify it as a deciduous or evergreen. I'm pointing to a tree. What type of tree is this? Was your response deciduous? If that is what you said, great job. All right, I'm pointing to another tree. What type of tree is this? Did you say evergreen? That is correct. Evergreen is always green. Today's main topic or main idea is deciduous trees. Listen carefully to find out what happens to deciduous trees throughout the year. There are many different kinds of plants in the world, although each is unique and special in its own way. Most plants found on land are either deciduous or evergreen. Remember, a deciduous plant is one that loses its leaves. An evergreen plant is one that does not lose its leaves and is always green. This is a picture of an apple tree in the winter. An apple tree sheds its leaves every fall, so it is a deciduous tree. The word sheds means loses. Deciduous is a tricky word to say because it has four parts. Let's say the word parts. Deciduous. We clapped out the four syllables of deciduous. The four parts of the word deciduous can actually help you remember that deciduous trees change in each of the four seasons. Seasons happen in a cycle or circle over and over again: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Let's start with spring, when new things start growing. In the spring, the apple tree produces new leaves and apple blossoms or flowers. Remember Polly the honeybee? This is the time of year when she starts taking nectar from the inside of the flowers. When she flies from flower to flower, she helps spread the pollen that is going to help the trees grow. In the summer, the apple tree grows many more green leaves. Apples begin to grow out of the blossoms. In the fall, the apples of the apple tree are fully grown and ready to pick. The leaves on the apple tree start to change to red and yellow, and then they fall onto the ground. Over time, the leaves on the ground will break down into tiny pieces and become nutrients in the soil. Who remembers what are nutrients? Did you remember that nutrients are what the plants need to help them grow in the beginning life cycle when you plant the seeds? Here is the apple tree again in winter. Remember, the seasons repeat in a cycle or circle over and over again every year. This apple tree has bare branches again, meaning they are empty and without covering or leaves. That is because plants do not get as much sunlight during the winter as they do during the spring and summer. In the apple tree's habitat, the weather becomes cold and there is less light from the sun. A habitat is a place where an animal or plant lives. With less light from the sun, the tree's leaves cannot make food through photosynthesis. Because the apple tree cannot make food during the winter, it must conserve or save its energy. It does this by becoming dormant. Dormant means to be asleep and not active. When the apple tree goes dormant, it stops making leaves, blossoms, and apples, and its branches become bare. This image shows an apple tree in all four seasons. Remember, the apple tree is a deciduous tree because it loses its leaves every year. In the spring, an apple tree is nice to look at with its white blossoms. In the summer, you can climb its branches, sit under the shade of its large green leaves, and admire the apples as they grow out of the blossoms. In the fall, You can pick the apple tree's fruit and watch its leaves change colors before falling off. In the winter, you can play in the snow under its bare branches. Although trees are special to us in many ways, it is important to remember that trees are also very important in nature. Trees, more than any other plant, help keep the air clean and safe to breathe, which you will learn more about later. They also provide food and homes for countless animals. So, next time you see a big tree, wrap your arms around it and give it a big hug, just to show you understand how important it is. Let's see if we can answer the following statements correctly. A deciduous tree produces new leaves and blossoms in which season? Did you say spring? Spring was correct. An apple tree begins to produce apples in which season? Did you just tell me summer? If you said summer, that was correct. A deciduous tree leaves fall off. Did you say fall? If you said fall, you were correct. And let's try our last one. A deciduous tree has bare branches. Was your answer or response winter? Winter is when a deciduous tree has bare branches. Who can tell me the answer to this question? What are deciduous plants? Did you tell me deciduous plants are plants that lose their leaves? Who can answer this question? How do deciduous plants change throughout the year? For example, how does an apple tree change throughout the year? Were you able to answer all of these parts? One of these parts? If you got none of these parts, then pay close attention. A deciduous plant, such as an apple tree, produces new produces new leaves and blossoms in the spring. An apple tree begins to produce apples in the summer. The leaves change and fall off in the fall. It has bare branches and becomes dormant in the winter. If you got one or all, great work. If you didn't, that's okay. We just need to make sure we're listening to our stories. When do deciduous plants start to lose their leaves? Did you say deciduous plants start to lose their leaves in the fall? If you did, great work. Why are deciduous plants bare in the winter? Did you say or state that deciduous plants are bare in the winter because they do not get enough food or enough sunlight to make food? I hope you enjoyed learning about deciduous trees today. When you are outside, see if you can find some deciduous trees and discuss what season we are in right now based on the way your deciduous tree looks.